Okay, so I'm going to start my inking journey here. What I've got is an old sketch that I did a while back. I'm going to clean it up just a little bit and put some hair on it, and then I'm going to just start inking. So this was drawn in June of 2020, and I was just deciding on whether I wanted to get back into art or not. So I hadn't made any decisions, but then I don't think it was very long after, and I took a course in Toronto from a guy who worked for Marvel. See, the corner of the eye where the tear duct is lower than the outside edge. I want to make sure that the tear duct is a bit lower, like that. The other thing is, I think the nose is a bit too short. So I am going to recess the nose a bit more and have it come down just a little farther, like this. And my light source is going to be coming from top left.
So I'm just getting some details in on the eyes, and then I wanted to detail the ear, get that going, and then more work on the eyes, getting the iris and pupils in there, some highlights, just a few quick lashes. And then I went at the hair, and I basically just went and found a hairdo that I liked, and it was kind of a neat one, these double pom-poms or whatever. And then just some details on the mouth, and we're back to the hair. Now this eye was a little too far away from the nose, so I had to redraw it and move it in closer to the nose. The tear duct should be pretty much in line with the nostril of the nose. And then just putting in some rough eyebrows. And then the neck was way too long, so I had to redraw the neck and shorten it up. And here we are with inking. So for me, inking was a big experiment on purpose, not trying to... I went into this project on purpose without having studied a lot of inkers and techniques and that. I just wanted to see what I could do. I hadn't inked in a long time, like a real long time, like 5 years or so, and then I just wanted to see how I would do without having studied a whole bunch of tutorials and things like that. So basically just grabbed some ink and grabbed some brushes, and I do have some brush pen work in here, but I just started out winging it. And I had no idea how I was going to do the hair, and my first attempt was just to try and do some, I don't know, shading and lighting at the same time, which ultimately didn't work for me. But anyway, we're just filling in the shadow on the neck here, and then I'm just dabbling around. I'm avoiding inking the eyes because I was a bit nervous when I started, but realizing I had to get to them sooner or later. But just getting a feel for this number 3 brush that I had. And then yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the hair. So you can kind of see I'm trying to leave some highlights in there. And it was kind of working, but I made a mistake later on that we'll talk about. And then with the eyebrows, I went in with a dip pen, and they worked quite well. And definitely made things easier by turning the drawing and making the paper, work with my wrist. So this was kind of hard to push up like that. So I remember, okay, I better just turn the page and get it going. So we're just trying to be patient and get in those individual lashes, and then overlapping them, as you can see. All just a big experiment, but a lot of fun. And I wanted to do it on this old sketch that was going to have no other purpose but to just sit in a sketchbook and waste away. So I thought I'd be brave. And okay, so here we are working on the eye, okay, and getting the lid of the eye like that. So this part really made me nervous because I'm not really used to dip pens much at all, and I'm learning how to use them as I'm doing this sketch. So I was slightly nervous, but what's the worst can happen, right? You spill some ink and have to white it out. All right. I knew I wanted to make the outside edge of the iris a little darker. And yeah. Making decisions as I go. Trying to put in some details. And getting used to the dip pens and the nibs was tricky for me. They just didn't work the way I imagined. I think I was thinking too much of brush pens, and I had to learn how to press the nib down. So, and then putting in some lashes there with the dip pen. You can see I'm struggling with getting the lines out of the nib. So I kind of switched to the ear to just relax a little bit and work with the brush. And it worked out well. And yeah, I had a lot of footage, so I had to cut it down quite a bit, or it would have been like 3 hours long. And just shading that upper lid. There we go. The nib is working better. You can kind of see how I like to do my lashes there. Sometimes I like to cross them, but I definitely like 2 lashes to meet up at the tip. That's kind of something I love to do. Makes doing lashes fun for me. Don't know why, but that's my thing. The other thing about working with the dip pens and everything is I had to try and lean closer, which meant my head was getting in the way of the camera. So that's why I had to crop these shots really, really close. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do it here. Oh, okay, not yet. Okay. So yeah, I got a little paper towel there so I wouldn't smear the drawing with ink or sweat or anything else. And it works well. Pretty much rinse and repeat of the first eye. And trying to get a bit of a darker shadow on the top lid. Yeah. But the India ink that I was using was pretty consistent and filled in big spaces pretty well. You can see my hair getting in there as I lean in. If I wasn't recording, I'd probably have my head like 3 inches away from the page. So just so I can see. And you can see here because I had to zoom in so much to keep my head out of the way that it's a little bit blurry. So I apologize for that, but that's my technical limitations right now. And I pretty much film with just one camera. Okay, here we go. Now here's where I made a mistake. I thought this would look cool, shading the lip like this, hatching it. And but I didn't really even notice how it looked until I looked at the flip out camera lens. And it just kind of looked like a fuzzy mustache or something on the lips. So I eventually got rid of them. But yeah. So what you think might work, sometimes just doesn't. You can see how the lip looks like fuzzy or something. So I don't really notice it till later because I'm just in the zone of trying to get the drawing to work. And again, I can't really fail. And now here's another interesting thing. I'm trying to put in the sternocleidomastoid and shading it like when I use a pencil, but it kind of just looked like a fuzzy line or a centipede or something to me after. So we get to changing that. And here, so I like doing this with the brush, but I'll show you where I made another mistake with the hair later on. And then I had these like little scrunchies on her little pony buns, kind of like ponytail hair buns kind of thing. So I think if I had more experience, I could have made this style work, but I'd have to really look at some, I'd have to do some hair studies in, with lighting to be able to make this work. And you'll see what I do later on. But one thing is, so here's what I do. I decide, okay, I'm just going to have to fill all the hair in with black. And I'd even forgot that I had ordered some white acrylic markers, and you'll see them later on. Now, because this left eye was looking a little wonky, I decided to put more shadow on the top lid to kind of shrink the size of the open eye, and it worked out really well, actually. So, and then I just darken in the outside couple of lashes, and and that worked well too. Okay, just trying to get that top lid darker. Yeah. So I think it's probably going to take 6 months or a year to really get a feel for working with these dip pens. So I'm going to probably do it on a lot of old sketches and get my craft up a little bit. But I thought I'd show you, how I'm doing this without a lot of practice or anything like that. That's something when I'm looking at artists, I wish they would show more of their rough work and when they were, just building their skills and things like that. Because it kind of gives you a gauge to work from instead of, just trying to be perfect all the time. I don't worry about that too much. I try to be as good as I can, but I don't worry about perfection. And I always like putting in these kind of like cross starry highlights in eyes. I saw that in a manga thing and I thought, oh, that's cool. Just makes eyes a little more interesting. And so I like to do it. Yeah, now here, I thought, so I've got some white acrylic paint that I'm trying to fix the lips with, and it's not working. It's like, okay. So I was struggling a bit, and then I just got the brush and decided to get rid of all that furry stuff on the lip. And that was a good decision, actually. So sometimes I'll just leave an area and then go into another area, and my subconscious mind will start working on problems that I'm having. And I knew I wanted a bit of, like bounced light on the neck there. So anyway, now I ordered some Microns along with these white acrylic markers, and I love the Microns. They're so easy to work with. They're definitely a cheat when the working with the dip pens gets a little frustrating. But I had just bought them the day of the shoot, so when I opened them up, I had to experiment with them. And you see, I put in more fuzzies on the lip, and I was just having fun putting down lines with those Micron markers. And here I'm using acrylic paint in my long, thin-tipped, I think they're actually watercolor brushes, but they work nice for so many things. And so this is kind of the opposite of what I was doing at first with the hair. I was trying to do highlights and the shading all at once, but this was much easier to put in all black hair and then try and work out some highlights with with the markers and things like that. So the other thing that would be good is I did have a reference, but I only used it for the shape of the hair. I didn't really use it for any of the lighting or anything like that. I just kind of winged it and made it up as I went along, and it worked okay, you know. But sometime in the future, I will do some lighting of hairstyles and things. So yeah, I wiped out that sternocleidomastoid shadow, cleaned up the lips again, and decided to start over. Now, let's take a little journey. I decided that I did want to look at some reference material from comics, so I took out some of my essentials books, and it was kind of hard to find exactly what I wanted, but I did find some references, and we'll have a look at them here. So this is Thor, and you can see on the female lips there, the shadow on the bottom lip is inside the lip. There's no big shadow. Now this is Lady Sif, I think, and you can see that there's no shadow under the lip like there is with the man there, Balder. He has a shadow under his lip, but they kept the female lips. If there's Hogan the Grim, I like that character. But see, yeah, the girls, see, the only shadow is kind of part of the lip. It's not really under the lip like they do with Thor there. And here, it's just a single line for the bottom lip. So I know I'm kind of going fast, but you know, you can check out your own comics and see how they did it. See, Gwen Stacy's shadow is inside the lip, whereas with the guys, it's actually under the lip. See, like that. And there, the shading is inside the bottom lip. So interesting details. And here they put the pit of the neck in there for the sternocleidomastoid. Because I was struggling, I decided to, you know, look at some reference and fix that problem, or give myself a couple of solutions. And I'm glad I did. But again, I haven't really, you know, gone through YouTube and sat down with my dip pens and gone through some lessons. Here I'm fixing the neck, and here's my acrylic markers that I just bought, and they work so nice. I love them. And I wasn't really sure of the brand name, but whatever. And yeah, this is the acrylic white markers, cleaning up the chin, and then redoing the shadows on that sternocleidomastoid, just trying a different method, and deciding it wasn't working again. More acrylic paint. And my acrylic marker, I decided to white out some of the nose, go in and fix my little star highlights on the eyes. Just fun stuff. Okay, there we go. From that to that to that. Lots of fun.